Well, welcome everyone to this training, this webinar on the Strategic Author's Journey, 5 Steps to Publishing Success. Oh, got to switch over so it'll change. There we go. So here's a little sneak peek of some of the items we'll be going through. Don't worry, there'll be more of the text filled in as we go through this presentation, but this is really all centered around on the 5 phases of the author journey that all authors go through, no matter what book, what genre, or what they're planning to do. My goal throughout this webinar is to go through, if you've struggled to navigate the complex world of book publishing in the past, it's really not your fault. There's no book publishing 101 in most schools, at least not that I've seen. And if you've been overwhelmed by the many steps that are involved in getting your book from idea to print, I want you to set those worries aside. We're going to go over the process of what you need to do to accomplish that. And then the publishing industry. It's a vast industry, been around a long time, and there's not a lot of clear guidance. And it may have made you think that successfully publishing a high quality book is out of your reach, but that is not true. There are many options to accomplish that today. And then I'm happy to demystify the 5 phases of the author journey, and from book development to going beyond the book. And this you can be at any stage or any phase within that. And even if you're at the beginning, this is great. And then we got someone else joining. And by the end of this presentation, you'll have a clear roadmap to turn your book idea into a published reality, regardless of which publishing path you choose. All right, whoops, going a little ahead of myself. All right, so we've hit on this a little bit, but let me know the following: who you are, which we've had a bit from, where you're from, what niche or industry you're in, and what type of book you want to write. So go ahead and put that in the chat so we can get a sense of the variety of authors and aspiring authors that we have here this evening. Okay. And while you're doing that, I'll talk a little bit about something I announced last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago, that I'm jumping in finally. It's some people may say to do my own book. And it's going to be focused on authors, and I'm in the process of finishing my outline and going over putting together a book proposal so that I can really have a nice roadmap for what I'm wanting to do. So D, you're working on a higher education leadership, strategic leadership. Very, very nice. Zane from Huntington Beach. Oh, that's very nice. And you're writing a business book about data strategies. Yeah, we had a wonderful conversation about your book. So continue filling that out. Let's keep going through. And let's go over a few housekeeping before we dive in. I'm going to set some expectations. So this presentation is about the journey of writing and publishing a book. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. If you're looking for overnight success or guaranteed bestseller status, this isn't for you. And this is also not for you if you're unwilling to put in the time and effort required to write a quality book. You expect the publishing process to be quick and easy, and you're not open to feedback or constructive criticism of your work. As I like to say, doing a book is a team sport. There's one author, but there's many people behind that helps that be possible. And this is for you if you're passionate about sharing your message or story through a book, you're committed to learning about and navigating the publishing industry, and you're willing to invest time, effort, and resources into your author journey. Sounds good? All right, so we'll be covering a lot of ground today. So be prepared to take notes and ask questions at the appropriate time. We'll be doing a great Q&A at the end. And remember, publishing a book is a marathon. It's not a sprint. I'm here to equip you with the knowledge and strategies for long-term success as an author. And then finally, while I'll discuss various paths to publishing, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. I come with a very customized approach with each author I work with, and our goal is to help you find the best path for your unique situation and goals. And then Kay, you just put in Nashville, Tennessee, welcome, and I'm working on children's series. I have done one in the series, but has been a tough journey. And thank you for sharing that, being vulnerable. Yes, it is a tough journey, but it is a worthwhile journey. So here's what we're going to go over. We're going to go over these 3 pillars that I see as helping you to achieve success as an author. Pillar number 1 is the author essential. Pillar 2 is the 5 phases of the author journey. And pillar 3 is the strategic author, building your book-based business. So first, a little bit about me. I've been in the publishing industry for 12 years, and most of that time has been at Franklin Covey. That's where I entered in and learned the book business. I served as a project manager there and was over book development and launching. And in the last 5 years that I was there, I helped launch 12 books, and those 5 of those books were Wall Street Journal bestsellers and multiple Amazon bestsellers. And then, as mentioned before, I like to come with a customized approach to help authors find the best path for them. And then I'm the founder of Juxtabook. A little bit more about myself. I grew up in Utah. I've always loved reading. I'm married with 2 kids. And I liked English growing up. I loved the teachers. I had some wonderful teachers, but I did not think I would end up in an English field. And I'm always fascinated about people's behavior and why we make the choices that we do. I learned the power of words and stories at a young age. When I was in 6th grade, if any of you remember the DARE program or ever participated in that, I wrote a letter to my uncle who was making some choices that weren't the best choices, at least from what I was learning and the path that was leading him down. So this letter changed the course of what he decided to do, and he changed his choices. And I just learned the power of sharing and caring and of your words. Harry Potter was my favorite series growing up, and Atomic Habits and The Entrepreneur's Paradox and Why We Love Star Wars have been some of my favorite books in many genres from the past few years. All right, and my path into publishing. So long ago, I wanted to know what to do for a career. I gravitated toward work and being an entrepreneur. I liked organizational psychology, which led me to Franklin Covey. And that 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that wasn't my copy, but that was the edition that I had read at the time. And so I thought, hey, I like this. I want to go into this. So let's go into consulting. So I went on to pursue a master's degree in organizational psychology from Columbia University and got certified as an executive coach through there. And then a few years, I worked in the consulting field and learning and development. And at the beginning of my career, I worked at Franklin Covey, left, and then went back for a few more years. And that's really where I ended up with books. And Juxtabook was born during that time as a side gig. And now it's my full-time role at doing this and building the business. And I absolutely love it and enjoy it. And these are the main reasons and my why of why I do this business and work with authors is I love working with passionate authors. There's not a group that I have found that is really more passionate about what they do, their content, and what they're trying to put out into the world. The second reason is cultural impact. The books that have been published over the years have an impact. Your stories, your book can have an impact. You think about many of the cultural shifts as a society, many of them started with a book. I believe in the power of words, as I mentioned before. One of my favorite quotes from Harry Potter is from Dumbledore, where he says, words, in my not so humble opinion, are our most powerful source of magic. And then finally, I love learning. And this is my selfish choice of what I like, why I like doing this is I love learning from authors. I love learning your content, learning what you're passionate about, and learning how we can make your book and your journey as an author successful. So that's enough about me. Let's dive into you some more. So there's a very much real author struggle out there. We don't learn this in school necessarily, and you have a story to tell, but you may not know how. Your story may be ready. You've written it, and it's now sitting on your computer gathering dust, and you don't know how to publish your book or how to find an agent or publisher if you're going down a traditional route. And there's lots of things that come up with you as an author. You may wonder, am I good enough? Is my content good enough? And will I stand out? There are estimated between 2 and 4 million books published every single year. Many of those are most of those are self-published, but even still, you may feel like you're competing in a red ocean. Now, the impact of this struggle may cause you to pause on your progress, and you may delay the next steps in your journey or career, even though you know that this book could help you. It stalls your progress, not just the book progress, but maybe in your business that you're trying to build around this and the impact you're trying to have. And you may be knowing that you may be missing out on opportunities to work with clients or individuals that a book would help you get in the door. And then you may have a bit of a fear of missing out. And you know that your book would increase your authority, increase your rates, and cut down on the timeline of your sales cycle. So the aha moment that many authors have when I work with them is they need a strategic plan. A plan will help guide you on which path to go down. And so we'll be diving into that a little bit later in this webinar. So here's the plan. Here's the steps. I'll go over each of these in one of the pillars, but you need a plan to be able to get you to where you are now, to where you want to be in the future. So what kind of plan do you need? Well, you need to know your author type. I have 12 different author models that I work with on authors to help you discover which of these models best fit you and what path relates to that model that would best increase your chances of having a very successful book. You need to know your book type. There's several different types of books out there, not just in your genre, but also in a book. Are you producing a workbook? Is it one that's supposed to provoke some provocative thinking? Is it a how-to book? Is it more of a quasi workbook and storytelling of what you're trying to accomplish with your message and your story? Next is the author strategies. What are the different strategies that you can employ to build your brand? And then with all of this, you need a strong author why. Why are you doing this? Because this was what will keep you going. So if you achieve this, you become a published author. The outcome and win for you may be having a successful book, having a successful author brand, having a successful impact, successful sales, and successful growth in your business, in what you're wanting to accomplish. And maybe it's being able to go out on your own and do your own thing. This is the Juxtabook team experience. It looks like a few of these aren't coming through. I'll have to fix that, but that's okay. Here's the portfolio, and then here's the team experience. Most of which of these books I've done through Franklin Covey. So I've been through traditional publishing, self-publishing, and helping authors decide if hybrid publishing is the path for them. All right. Whoops, I jumped back. Let's jump forward again. Okay. So I want to highlight a few of the books that I've worked on and what I've learned through these. So this is one of the first books outside of Franklin Covey I worked on with Hyrum Smith, who was one of the founders of Franklin Covey, but was no longer involved when I was working with him. This book was traditionally published. It sold over 22,000 copies in its lifetime. It filled a need in the market. Hyrum's a legacy author, and it's very analytics based. We found a publisher for him that was looking to have a book that can last in the longevity of the book, not just make a splash and be done, but this book consistently sells. Some highlights from this book: it's a clear title, the subtitle has a clear benefit, and it has a very well-defined audience. Another book that was traditionally published while I was at Franklin Covey is The Leader's Guide to Unconscious Bias. This book is a great example of the right timing. It launched in 2020, right around the time where there was a lot of demand for bias training, bias-based training, unconscious bias training. And because Franklin Covey had training they're developing around this, they thought, let's do a book, and they could see some of these trends coming. So knowing and understanding the trends of your market can be hugely valuable. And it had the right authors. Each of these authors have a background that either has personal stories or leadership experience that contributed to this book around this topic. This book, which is called Making Plans That Stick, launches this month. It actually launches next Tuesday. It's traditionally published through a mid-sized publisher, and it focuses on the failure to launch phenomenon. And this is the group of individuals who are having a struggle knowing when, having a struggle of really launching either out of high school or in college and have graduated and aren't sure what to do. And what the author, Josh Brazier, noticed was that there's a lot of books about this group, but there wasn't very many that was for them. So he has a very clear line of sight of who the target reader is, as well as the target buyer. He knows that those who read this can be helped by it, but it's unlikely that they're going to be the ones that are going to be the only buyer of the book. It could be friends, family, parents of these individuals who fall within this group. Evergreen content. It looks like this one's having trouble as well, but that's okay. This one is supposed to be the teacher's guide to career change. And I think I might have a copy over here that I can show you. Looks like it, not quite, but that's okay. Anyways, this was by Ashley Phillips, and she was a former teacher. She loved teaching, but she got burned out from it. And she had a clearly defined audience of knowing that she wanted to target teachers who were ready to get out of teaching, but did not know how. And her book became a book of her stories, a quasi workbook, and one that was very strong on how to do this. And right now she is using it to build a community and to launch her coaching in this area. And then finally, I have to talk about the evergreen concepts in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This book was 30 years old in May of 2020, and I was privileged to be a part of the relaunch of the 30th anniversary. Over 40 million copies have been sold. And this is the book that built Franklin Covey and made it what it is today, that and a combination of the planner. Now, one thing that many people may or may not know about this book is Stephen R. Covey started out developing the 7 Habits as a professor at Brigham Young University. And so this book took decades to write for him, and he decided to leave that position, start this company, and it is one of the best-selling business books and self-help books of all time. All right, so let's go into more of the meat of this now that you've kind of seen some of the examples and case studies of what I've been involved with. Pillar number 1 is the author essentials, 4 things that all authors need. You need to discover your why, know your audience, build habits and routines, and have a growth mindset. So first, discovering your why. Knowing why you're doing this and why you want to write a book keeps you motivated. It helps you know the impact that you want to make. Your why helps you to define your values and further helps you have guardrails around what you want to do to focus your book and where you don't want your book and your brand to go. And your why helps you inform your author brand. What is it that you want people to think of when they hear your name or see your book or read your book? Your why is very important in all of those aspects. Second, know your audience. You need to know, these are 4 things that I talk about a lot, but you need to know the challenge that you're solving for, the problems that your audience is struggling with. Second, you need to know who they are and what they think, what they feel, and how you are going to connect with them. And that goes along with knowing where they hang out. It's good to know who they are, but you have to figure out how are you going to connect with them. And that includes online and offline. There's still an abundance of opportunities. a great example of this is I'm working with an author who is writing a book focused on the C-suite. And they're probably not going to be as much online working and trying to connect with CEOs as much as they would as trying to get into conferences where they'll have the CEO's direct attention. And so we're going through and targeting conferences where CEOs are most likely going to be, and are putting a plan together that he can begin to start pitching himself, his content, so that he can be a featured speaker at one of those events. And then you need to know their language, meaning you need to understand how to talk to them, understand what they're talking about online, what are they struggling with, and how are they describing what they're going with, and how they're describing their challenges or problems of what they're trying to solve. Next is building habits and routines. Consistency, this is consistency with a purpose. It's good to have a habit that you're writing every day, but what is the goal of that habit and routine? And how are you tracking and building progression towards achieving your goal with your book, your brand? Third is this builds confidence. When you can see yourself making progress and having momentum towards your book, this is absolutely gives you confidence and keeps you going. The author I mentioned before, Ashley Phillips, who wrote the book on helping teachers who feel burned out, she had been writing her book for 3 years. I connected with her on LinkedIn, and then we made a plan, set deadlines, and built habits and routines for her to help finish her book. And she had accountability partners. I was one of those, but then she had others that were her accountability partners as well. And we celebrated that every time she hit a milestone, every time she hit her writing goal, we would celebrate those. And that gave her confidence to keep on going. And that built in accountability. And I love is that the 1% better mentality of Atomic Habits. As you're building these habits and routines, even if you're only doing like 10 or 15 minutes a day that you can focus on this, that 10 or 15 minutes a day will add up significantly over a year's time. And you'll be surprised at how far you can get with only doing a little bit each day. And that'll motivate you to keep on going and increasing that time you spend. And then finally, a growth mindset. You're going to make a lot of mistakes as an author. You're going to learn from those mistakes. You need to make sure that you give yourself permission to suck. Like the first draft you write of your book is not going to be your best draft. The great thing is you're going to probably be the only one who sees that first draft, and then you can send out the second draft that will be much better than your first. You're going to have setbacks. There might be disappointments. When COVID hit, that was a challenge for many authors that were going around and relying on speaking for their business. And then you're going to want to make sure you can receive constructive feedback to help make your book and make your brand better as an author. All right, I'm going to pause right there from the first pillar. Thoughts and impressions on this at all? Feel free to give me a thumbs up, throw it in the chat as well. I just love talking about this stuff. I could talk about this all day, and and it's just a lot of fun to do. So, all right. Thanks for the thumbs up, Josh. Right there. Oh, Brian as well. Thank you all for being here. Okay. Pillar number 2 is the 5 phases of the author journey. So the first phase is book development. This sounds like this is where many of you on the call are at and have experienced. So in this phase, you're researching, you're writing your book, you're going through feedback rounds, and you're editing, all with the goal to get a finished manuscript. Now, I wish all of these phases were step-by-step linear, but they're not, but this is a great way to think about it. Next is book publishing. This is where you're figuring out, are you going to traditionally self-publish or go down the hybrid publishing route? And you're starting to think about the layout and design of your book. And this is a really fun phase. I will tell you, one of the funnest but most challenging parts of a book is getting the title right and working with the designer or publisher to get the book cover right. And when you land on it, you'll be proud of it, and it's just amazing. The Leader's Guide to Unconscious Bias, that book we talked about earlier, we probably went through 10 rounds of different options for books. And with each round, we got there a little bit closer each time to what we thought would best represent the messages in the book. The third phase is author branding. This is where you're establishing your author identity, building your platform, and figuring out how do you want to reach out and connect with people, and how are you going to engage with them. So this goes back to knowing where your audience hangs out and connecting with them in that capacity. And many authors, the Atomic Habits book, I love the introduction of that book because James Clear tells you exactly how he tracked his journey and how he built basically the business around his book. And it was over a period of posting, sending out a newsletter each week consistently over 5-6 years, that by the time his book launched, he had close to 900,000 people on his list. And then launch and marketing is the fourth phase. This is thinking about how are you going to launch your book? What's the community that you're going to build and the means that you're going to do that? And what's the ongoing promotion that you're going to have around your book? And this is all meant to build your credibility and authority. And then finally is beyond the book. And this is where many of you may already have established a business and you're wanting to use a book to build that. But this is expanding on your expertise, thinking about what derivative products can you have from your book. And this includes your ebook, your audio book, and this will be courses if your book ends up being translated into other languages, and includes coaching. There's a lot of different ways that you can have beyond the book services and other offerings. So I want to know where each of you are at. So if you scan this QR code, or I'll throw this link in the chat and you can put in where you're at or where you've been with being an author. And I'm just going to grab a quick swig of water. All right, let me throw it in the chat right now. All right, there we go. We'll go to the next page. And you can also go to menti.com and use the code 596047. And then this will automatically begin to populate as you go in and do that. And this is always really interesting when I do this because you're able to see where people have started. Some are at the beyond the book stage of where they're at. All right, let's see. There we go. There's some coming in. All right, someone author branding and beyond the book. Let's go back. There might be a slight delay with some of this. Let me know if it's working for you, if you've been able to submit it. If it's having trouble, just go ahead and throw in the chat what phase you are at in your journey. Saying you're an author branding, building out your brand. Great phase to be in. Nicole, book development. Very nice. Okay, and author branding. If you are in that, that's awesome. All right, let's move on to the next part of this. And D, book development. Yes. So when does each phase actually begin? It's a good question. First is book development. This is probably the most linear stage for the most part. This is the beginning of the book. Without doing this, you will not have a book to publish, obviously. Next, the book development, book publishing it starts right after book development and can go through and goes through all the way through the launch of your book. And now this is where it begins to get interesting. Author branding. As many of you have just put in the chat, you are in the author branding stage. And that can begin as early as you start to develop your book and go through while you're publishing your book, and it goes through launching and marketing your book. Your author branding is one of those that will be continuous. You may decide, such as Donald Miller, if you're familiar with his series of books on building a story brand and marketing made simple, or business made simple, small. And he started out as a fiction author. He actually has 2 or 3 fiction books before he jumped into doing more of the nonfiction type of books that are more business based. So you may decide that partway through your career, you're going to switch your genre, and along with that, your author brand will switch. Or you may have a pen name. And then launch and marketing, that begins for many authors when their book publishing process begins. So as soon as you get that book written and you're starting the process, you're starting to launch and market your book. And this can even stretch into the beginning stages of writing your book. And I encourage the authors I work with to talk about their author journey, talk about what they're writing, what they're struggling with as an author. And it's a great way to bring people in when you're asking for beta readers on your book. That's a great way to build a community and start finding those who are interested in your book and who will be excited for your book for when it launches. And then finally, the beyond the book. For most authors, that'll typically begin around their author branding and stages. Or for some authors, that's the very first thing they're doing because they're building a coaching and consulting business. And then down the road, they decide to write a book that helps build it further, or to pass along everything that they've learned. So here's all the 5 phases of the author journey. And underneath all of this, that makes going through each of these phases a lot less challenging, is to have a strategic author roadmap. So we'll go into that. So how are you feeling? Are you loving this so far? I'm loving telling you about this and just getting excited thinking about all the authors that are so excited. Like one of my favorite things for authors to see is when they get the ARC copies, which is advanced reader copy, or galley copies of their book. And that comes at early before it launches, that you can use to send out to people who could potentially be interested in featuring your book. And the other part is when they get the first final copies done, that they get to open up the box that gets shipped from their publisher or their self-publishing platform, and they see the finished product. Oh man, it's a thrill watching authors and watching those videos and hearing about those stories. And Josh, very much so, yes. And Josh is on. He's the one that I had mentioned before. He has the book launching next Tuesday, Making Plans That Stick. And yeah, it's an incredible experience. Thanks for sharing that, Josh. All right, so let's get into this strategic author plan with pillar number 3, building your book-based business. So here's the path that helps you develop your strategic author plan. The first step is your author consultation. And that's working with me or identifying basically what is the potential of your book. The next step is identifying your author persona, looking at what author model best fits you, or if there's a combination of the different models that would best fit you. The next step is choosing your publishing path, figuring out which out of the 3 paths of self, traditional, or hybrid publishing are going to be best for you or best for your book. And then the 4th step is to kickstart that publishing adventure, to get started and get moving so that you can achieve a published book. So when I meet with authors, the author consultation is focused on getting to know you. I want to know about your goals, your vision, what your current platform is, all of that great information so that you can have an informed decision. And together we'll dig deep into your aspirations and what makes your story unique. We all have a very unique story to tell. And even if you're going into a crowded market, you have an incredible story to tell. Step number 2 is identifying your author persona and going into your author model. So I have 4 different categories which you see here, of how to help authors figure out which author model fits them. So there's legacy builders, which are people who want to pass on something that they've learned. Inside illuminators are individuals who have a very specific specialized knowledge or have discovered something that they want to put out into the world. A great example of these types of authors is someone like Malcolm Gladwell. He doesn't necessarily create the content, but he is a journalist at heart, and he talks a lot about and bringing forth these incredible ideas that people may have not considered before. Influence strategists are individuals who want to build out more how-to books and ones who want to influence how you go about doing things. And then learning leaders are those who are passionate about learning and putting content out there to help you in business, help people with self-help type of books. And so let's jump in over to these 12 different models. So under legacy builders, you have business mentor, executives, strategic leaders, entrepreneurs, and people who are wanting to be a memoir author. Inside illuminators are thought leaders, company subject matter experts, acclaimed authors, or knowledge luminaries, influence and strategists, content creator and influencer, lifestyle blogger and influencer, and learning leaders are educational experts and self-improvement gurus. Oops. All right, and let's jump into step 3, choosing your publishing path. The course, I like to say that there's no one right path. You could choose any of the paths. There's just different trade-offs. You'll want to pick the one that meets your goals. But if you're set on a certain path, such as I meet with authors who are like, I want a traditional publisher. And we go through and like say, that's great. This is what it's going to take to get there. And it may make your journey a little bit longer, but if that's where you want to go, then we'll do our absolute best to achieve that. So here's the 3 different options. Traditional, where you typically need an agent. Some publishers you don't. And the goal for that is landing a publishing deal. Self-publishing. This is where your goal is to really publish a high quality book that can compete with any other book out there and achieve a success and be able to have some of the wonderful parts of self-publishing where you make all the calls, you make all the decisions, and you own your content. And then hybrid publishing, which is the middle ground in many aspects of traditional and self-publishing. You get the services of a traditional publisher, but you're upfronting most of the costs. And so you're trying to find the best fit for you as the author with the right hybrid publisher. So these are the basic questions to ask yourself when you're trying to decide which of these publishing paths would be best for me. First, what is my budget for publishing my book? Second, how quickly do I want to have my book be published? Traditional publishing takes the longest. It can take 1 to 2 years. Self-publishing is the quickest, and hybrid is kind of in the middle. Third, how important is it for me to maintain control over the content, meaning cover design and the pricing of my book, when it launches, when you're using a designer that you want to? Number 4, do I have a strong personal or professional network to help market my book? That will impact whether, in many ways, if you can get a deal or not with a traditional publisher that you can show that you can sell the book. And with any hybrid or self-publishing, you'll want that so that you can sell your book. And then finally, what are my financial expectations from book sales with the book itself, as well as what you hope it brings you beyond the book? So, and then going back, one of the most important questions to get clear on, as I mentioned before, is why are you writing this book? All right, now we're jumping into the last section here, and I wanted to go over how can you know and what are the things you need to consider to have success in each phase of the author journey. So let's talk about book development first. In this phase, these are all the things that you'll want to be thinking about: your market research, your copyright permissions, your diversity that you have in the book, diversity of content, diversity of individuals, all that fall within your target market and genre. Learning about your audience, having the goal of getting the final draft of the book and getting feedback That's the phonetic spelling. And the book publishing plan, you're getting that set, and then you're getting your strategic author plan. Next, looking at book publishing, whichever the path you're going down, each of them have all the same essential items that you'll need to do, but all of them have a different strategy and different tactics as you're going through them. So for example, with traditional, you need to land a publishing deal, and you're going to need to build a relationship with your publisher and lead out with your publisher and learn how to talk and negotiate with them as they produce your book. With self-publishing, you're going to be the one who's handling it all. You're going to be the project manager or hiring a project manager or author coach to help you go through this process. And you're thinking about, how do I get this book done? How do I distribute it? And then how do I optimize it? And then hybrid publishing, you're pitching as with a traditional publisher and you're landing a deal, figuring out which services are going to be a best fit for you, what you need help with from their services, which you can handle on your own. And at the same time, you're building a relationship with the team that you have there so that you're aligned on expectations and goals for your book. And then author branding. These are 4 things that I believe are very important for your author brand. You need to be clear for your author brand for your audience, because you're showcasing your identity, your personality, your genre, and what you stand for. When you have clarity, you're going to be able to clearly communicate your value and solutions to your audience. As we all know, our attention span is decreasing and continues to decrease. So you need to know, how do you hook someone in and get their attention to pay attention to what you have to offer? Third is for engagements. Readers will engage with your books and content more easily if you build a strong author brand and you're building a brand that they can trust. Because many people may like you, they may think your book seems like a good idea, but many times the question we're asking ourselves is, can I trust this person? Or in your case, can I trust this author to deliver on what they're promising? And then for execution, having a strong author brand, you'll know how to better sell your books, connect with readers, and be able to implement your plan more effectively. And then launch in marketing. These are 5 areas that I see will make a difference in your launch in marketing. A lot of it goes along with planning, but having that strong plan and knowing how to execute on that plan is paramount. So first is setting goals. What are your impact goals? What are your author goals, your book sale goals, and beyond the book goals? Your launch team, who are they? Is it a community you're building? Is it your network? What do you want them to do? One mistake that I've seen authors make is not being clear on exactly what you want your launch team to do. I believe there's an abundance of people that want to help you and help you be successful, but we all have a lot of priorities. So being clear on what you want them to do will help have a successful launch team, and having them clear on the expectations of when they're doing that. Third is offers. One of the most crazy things and challenging things about selling a book is it's one of the hardest things to sell. People, I believe, generally love books, but getting someone to spend anywhere from $15 to $30 on a book can be a challenge. And so having incentives, additional incentives that include special offers or bonuses when you're launching your book or adding additional value, you need to find a way to make it absolutely compelling for people to say, I would be a fool if I said no to buying this book. And then fourth is platform growth. How are you thinking about how your book is going to build your platform, your brand, your subscriptions, and your engagement? There's kind of an industry phrase that we use in the publishing industry, is that it's the author's job to sell the first 10,000 books, and then it's the book's job. Meaning, if you have an incredible book, then people will talk about it word of mouth and tell people about it. And every time you get a book in someone's hands, that book becomes a little 24/7 marketer. So that's why when you're in the book development phase, it's crucial to get a book that's going to be impactful for your audience. And then fifth is launch and marketing, thinking about how this builds your credibility. How does this further build your brand, your network, and the influencers that you're going to be able to continue to connect with that you weren't before. A book might get you in with clients that you weren't able to before, influencers or on podcasts, or get you on the stages, being able to speak that previously were harder for you to even get access to. And then beyond the book, which I just hit on a little bit, this includes consulting, speaking, courses, derivative products, and coaching. The great thing a book does is you can increase your rates. For many authors that I've worked with, their speaking rates start out at anywhere around 5,000. And then when they have a book launch, they've been able to up that to 10 or 15,000. And so that's an immediate return on investment from when your book launches. Next, faster closing times. People are wanting to be able to have shortcuts to make decisions. And if they've looked at your book, read your book, and understand what you stand for, you'll be able to close deals quicker. Generating more leads. There are incredible ways to use a book to build leads for your business. There's many authors out there who offer their book pretty much at cost of the printing and the shipping cost from their website to get that out into the hands of their target audience, to get them on their list. And it's a great way to then build people's trust and then offer them your services even further. And then it increases the opportunities that you will have access to. So let me ask you a question. Are you enjoying its training so far? I'm having fun and would love to hear from you as well. Either give me a thumbs up or throw something in the chat. I'm going to take another sip of water. I like and enjoy speaking with people, but I get cotton mouth. All right, K and D, thank you very much. Glad to have you here. Zane, thanks for the thumbs up as well. All right, so far we've covered pillar number 1, the author essentials, pillar number 2, the 5 phases of an author journey, and pillar number 3, the strategic author, building your book-based business. So I have a question for you. Would you like help with any of this? A book is a team sport, and it's great to have people that you can call upon to help you. So as I mentioned before, this is what I do when I kick off working with authors. We have a consultation, go through your author persona and find your model. And within a short period of time, I'm going to have the second step fully automated, where you go through and fill out a quiz, and you'll get a report that will give you ideas of what you can do. So when that launches, I'll be sure to notify you. Go through your publishing path to figure out what's a best fit for you. And then we get started. And with many of the authors I work with, some will say, thank you, Zach. I have this. I'm going to go out on my own. I'm like, great. Others are like, hey, I want you to come with me. I just want you to be successful. And if I can be at any step in your author journey, then that's a privilege and wonderful to me to be able to say I helped that author to guide them on their journey. So we're going to get into some Q&A, but for those who are interested, the next step would to schedule an author consultation with me in the next 2 weeks. And if for those who do that and are at the author session, I'm going to offer a free bonus that's worth $100. It's doing a thinking preference assessment that helps you to identify your author thinking style. So for the author consultation, we'll be going over your model, your journey, your why, questions that you have for me. You can ask as many as you want, download as much information that I can offer you, and where you want or need some additional help. And then the author thinking style assessment. So after we complete that author consultation, I'll send you a link where you can fill out a brain preference instrument that will help you identify, are you more left or a right-brained thinker? And which of those quadrants, even a step further, are you more apt to be? And then we'll go over for you either as a group of all those who take advantage of this, we'll go over how this impacts you as an author and how you can use that to identify your strengths and potential blind spots in all the phases of your author journey. So let's get your book done and get it started. You'll get an email with a link, but I'm also going to throw my Calendly in the chat, and you can go and schedule a time for the next 2 weeks to meet with me for an author consultation, and we can figure out what would be a win-win situation for us to work together. So while you're doing that, I'll open it up for Q&A. And I really appreciate everyone for being here. I'll stay on as long as we need for Q&A. So feel free to put your question in the chat, or because we're a smaller group, that makes it easy to be able to do some Q&A with audio. So if you want to come off mute, feel free to as well and ask a question.
Yeah. So, hey, Zach, I got saying I have a list of questions. Here's a simple one. What's the best way to thank your editors?
Yeah, I think one call out with that is to recognize them anytime that you're talking about, like when you launch your book. One great way, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute there. Okay. One way would it be when you launch your book to tag them in their social profiles and tell them how much they helped you. And especially if they're a freelance editor, that helps build their brand and their business. And then in the acknowledgments of your book, it's a lot of fun to see that you can pick up a book that you've helped an author with and see your name in there, even if it's a quick sentence about them. So I think those are two wonderful ways to do that. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thanks.
What other questions do you have? I know it's a lot of information, and that I've been doing this for 12 years, so it can be overwhelming, but one step at a time. Tucker, how do I become more like Zach? Well, I don't know. That's pretty hard to do. I'm just kidding. Like I just love what I do, love working with authors. So I guess if you want to come more like me, come hang out with me, and we'll see what we can do. And I want to become more like you for the authors that I work with. Thanks, Tucker.
Zach, this is Kay.
Hello, Kay.
Oh, how are you? Zach, I've actually published several books. The place that I'm at, and this would be my question to you, is I know who I am, I know what I can do, and it happens to be many things, which I'm not complaining about.
Yeah.
But the piece I am complaining about is having the ability to write, having the ability to publish, and then not having the ability to do anything with it as it relates to the promotion end. And the fact that I've published a number of books, I just don't have the finances to just go out and say, look, do this. So what is your suggestion? I mean, I'll come and consult with you, but my question is, how can we make this work? What can we do? I mean, I've done all the legwork, and I do know who I am and what I can do. I just can't get past that. If you're not the one, that's fine. But I'm willing to, go the route. I struggled through doing self-publishing. My story is great. I mean, I have a great story because it took me 30 years to publish. Wow. And I definitely don't want anybody to ever have that problem. But since it took me 30 years, I also felt like it was necessary to help as much as I can. I understand your presentation. I help a lot of people, but I'm stuck.
Yeah.
One of my books is called Stuck on Start, but I'm not stuck on start and writing. I'm stuck on start and getting to the next level.
Gotcha. Well, no, thanks for expressing that, Kay, and congrats on being a published author and getting through that. If learning and doing this all on your own is an incredible achievement. So it sounds like, just to clarify, that your struggle is you have the books out there, you've written several books, but it's getting the word out to the people who will take the time to purchase and connect with your book. Am I hearing that right?
Yes.
Okay. So for one, like the consultation's free. You'll have that time with me. So
I like that part.
yes, yes. So like, yeah, I would love to dive into everything deeper. And can you tell me a little bit, what's the genre of your book
I knew
or
you.
books?
I knew you. Yeah, I knew you would ask that. They're they're all nonfiction,
Okay.
and they range from a religious one on teaching people how to pray
Hmm.
to a children's book now on the magic of new beginnings, which is taught. I have an education background, but I have this book that's really for adults and teaching them how to deal with change and retirement and stuff like that.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so no, you have a variety there. So I think what I find with authors is that a lot of it sometimes comes down to the messaging that you potentially may be using. And so I'm jumping here, and when we touch base more, we can dive into it a little bit deeper. But sounds like you know who your audience is, and right now I would want to think like, okay, where is that audience hanging out, and then what's the value prop and what's differentiating your book from others out there in the market, because it is tough if your budget is lower to be able to market your book, but it's not impossible. And some of that comes down to good old fashioned, which I'm sure sounds like you've done and been doing, is that guerrilla marketing, whether that's online or offline. And it's, for example, one thing I've seen many authors do is they will find groups of individuals that resonate or potentially could resonate with their books. And they go on there just adding value through comments on within those groups, and they soon become, after it could be months or even a year of time, they're seen as someone who's providing value and an expert. And then people will start wanting to know, hey, what does Kay think about this? And then that's the time where you're able to jump in more and say, hey, I actually have a book on this. So like being value driven first and finding out where those individuals are hanging out and how you can help them can be a great place to be able to do that. So no, I appreciate the question, Kay, and yeah, schedule a call. Let's jump on and talk about it more, and I can give you some additional ideas based on what you've tried and what you could potentially do. Because yeah, it sounds like you put in a lot of work. Want you to be successful.
Yeah, and there's one other piece, which
Yeah.
is really the story, is that I've done all of this in the last year. I've actually published five books this year.
Wow.
And I'm 78 years old.
Okay.
I picked all of this up after retirement.
Well, that's incredible. Way to
That's
stay.
that's the story.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, I love that. Always, you are, it sounds like an incredible lifelong learner. Always keep going. That's amazing. Congratulations. Nicely done. Um, and then let's see. I think Josh had to jump, but Josh, I'll touch base with you later. Thanks for coming. And then Dee, thanks for scheduling a call, saying you're going to schedule one. And your question is, what would you need me to bring for our first meeting? So the biggest thing, Dee, is I want to know about your why. What's driving you for your book? Where are you with your book? What challenges are you running into? And where are you looking for help on there? And all of you who've attended, you'll have a way to access the recording. So if you want to go through and start thinking about the where you would potentially fit in with potential author models, and think about what type of author would you want to be. So go through and pick a few of either your favorite authors or other authors in your space and strategic, as being a strategic leader, and be like, I want to be more like this author, or this author would be similar to me, because that will help define what potential paths or options that you would have there. So excellent question. All right. Any other questions? These are great.
Yeah, Zach, I have a couple more for you.
Yeah.
One of the things you showed in your presentation I thought was really interesting was you made this distinction between knowing your audience and knowing how to reach that audience. And you gave an example of CFOs or C-suite people. Generally, you're going to reach them at conferences,
Yep.
So I thought that was an interesting distinction between knowing your audience and knowing how to reach them. And how do you, because I hadn't really thought about that second part. I just assumed LinkedIn was the only way. But is there some creative, way to sort of think that through that you've developed?
Yeah. Part of it is just going out there and listening to where you think they might be. So Josh, who was on here a second ago, like with his book that's coming out next Tuesday, Making Plans That Stick, has something we discovered that was a great example as we were talking a few weeks ago on like, hey, okay, you have your target audience, which are those individuals who are in that failure to launch phenomenon, who are struggling there. And then you have your target buyers. And I asked him like, well, who is most likely to buy the book? And he says, you know what? He says, most of the people I get referrals from are people either I know, or he says he gets parents that reach out to him that have current college students. And he asked, well, he asked him, where did you get my information? He's like, oh, I'm a part of this group that is this specific college. And someone mentioned your name because he's done this. He's worked with this group for a long time. And so that was an insight for us saying like, oh, okay, how can he get access to the individuals that are part of these private Facebook groups or these groups that are specific to each of these colleges or universities for parents? And so we're having a two-pronged strategy. One is he's going to be doing an event in the next month that's specifically targeted to the buyers, to these individuals who are the parents of this group. And then all of those who are who have potential friends that are struggling within this group. So he's doing two separate events. And honestly, part of that just came out of his experience of doing it. And you part of just have to experiment. You have to think, where could they hang out? And then start searching and finding groups or conversations using hashtags online or looking at events. There's some good websites. There's one I learned of recently for events. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's American Events, but they show you all the events going on around the country. And going back to the example, one more about like the C-suite group, as maybe there are more like small business and mid-sized businesses, CEOs who are more active on LinkedIn. But maybe if your book is targeting like more of like larger businesses, C-suite, then that might be more of the conferences. So there could be several different options there. So
that's really helpful.
Question.
Yeah, really helpful.
All right. What other questions? Keep them coming. These are great. Right. Well, thank you all for joining. Appreciate you giving up your evening to be here. And yeah, please reach out if you have questions, follow-up questions, schedule that consultation. And when we complete that, then you'll get that Neathing Brain instrument. That's the instrument I use to help look at your brain thinking preference, which is an incredible tool. I'm excited to continue to develop that more for authors on how you can take the results and know how to integrate that into your author journey. So I hope you all have a wonderful evening and look forward to future conversations with you.